This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. We begin tonight with developing news from the city's West End. Several people were injured after a fight erupted at a music festival at Woodbine Center. Around 7 this evening, gunshots were fired, but police say no one was hit, and so far the injuries appear to be minor. Ramna Shahzad starts us off tonight.
Chris, just behind me are the remnants of the music festival. Organizers are tearing down the stages and a few festival goers are still milling about. Now, just hours ago, it was a really different scene. Lots of people here enjoying a sunny Sunday afternoon with live music. But it quickly turned into chaos after police say a fight broke out in the crowd and gunshots were fired. Now, nobody was hurt by the gunfire, but paramedics did transport one person to hospital for injuries. And all that commotion, of course, put an end to the festivities here a little bit early at Woodbine Shopping Center. The event was supposed to go on until 8, but it wrapped up shortly before that. The event was called Sands Toronto Caribbean Music Festival. It bills itself as the largest Caribbean music festival and has counterparts in other cities around the world. A short while ago, I did get an update from Toronto Police. They said their investigation into the altercation here has wrapped up and there's no threat to public safety. Ramna Shahzad, CBC News, Toronto.
And a tragic story out of Pickering where a woman drowned trying to save her young son. It happened in Lake Ontario near Frenchman's Bay in Pickering around 4 in the afternoon. Police say a 6-year-old boy was on a floaty and strayed too far from the shore. His mom and a friend swam to save him, but the mom had trouble getting back. People at the beach pulled her to safety and started CPR. That's when EMS took over before transporting her to the hospital where she later died. The child was not injured. And a suspicious death to report in Scarborough. Police say a body washed ashore at Bluffers Park Marina at 9 this morning. Investigators are treating the death as suspicious, but won't say the cause of death. Police also haven't released the gender or age of the victim. And a major search is underway in Algonquin Park for 2 missing teenagers. The girls were both 16 from Kitchener, and so far, there is no sign of them. Police say they're both experienced campers and had gear with them. They were last seen Thursday on a trail, but they weren't carrying cell phones. A deadly accident happened here in the CBC Broadcast Center. A man is dead after falling down an elevator shaft. Emergency services were called to our building at Front and John in Toronto's downtown for reports that a window washer had fallen. A fire official says the man fell on top of the elevator and got stuck there. Crews climbed up the shaft and performed CPR for several minutes before removing the victim. Life-saving efforts didn't work and the man was pronounced dead around 7. Police say the Ministry of Labour is investigating. A spokesperson for CBC called the accident, quote, tragic, but will not be commenting further. Time now for a first look at your weather forecast with Amanda Weldon. Amanda, it was hot today, kind of beautiful out there, but I know it is about to get sticky and muggy.
You are so right about
Darn.
that. Hey, don't take my job, Chris.
Oh, sorry.
I'll let you know.
Okay, your turn. You go.
19 degrees. We've got variable skies in the mix. You're so right. It was really hot, and this is one of those times, too, where we're thinking, you know, this is unsafe kind of heat. So making sure that you're drinking water, never leaving anyone in a car, really, really, really important. Monday morning, you're going to be starting the day off with a, hopefully, strong cup of coffee, ready with goodwill, because 19 degrees and some variable skies, pretty good stuff. For Monday afternoon, 27 degrees. It's going to feel like 30. We've got that southerly flow in place. And look, by the evening hours, this is when we talk about that heat just really affecting people's day, because by the time the evening hits, it doesn't even cool off. So what's going on? Why do we have all this heat? We've got this high pressure system stateside, and it is just pumping up this heat from deserts. And before we were talking Bermuda high, now continental high. So it's been a little bit drier. You'll notice today wasn't as humid as it has been the past few days, but we do already have heat warnings in place and heat warnings ahead of days to come when those humidex values are going to start to soar. So actually, we're going to be talking about feeling like 39 in Toronto on Tuesday. We actually do have some rain on the way, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about when that will be. Chris.
Oh, brother, not looking forward to Tuesday.
I know.
Thanks, Amanda. We'll see you in a little bit.
No problem.
It was hot at the Honda Indy today, but Canada's top-ranked racer, James Hinchcliffe, didn't place as high as many hoped. After placing 4th last year, today he snagged the 6th spot. But it was a special tribute to another Canadian racer that captured a lot of attention today. Angelina King was there for it all.
Simon Pagenaud wins in Toronto.
Starting from the first position, Frenchman Simon Pagenaud wins the Honda Indy Toronto, celebrating his victory after beating out 21 other drivers on the 85-lap track. It includes 11 turns and winds around Exhibition Place for nearly 3 kilometers.
That was a pure, perfect execution from the Penske team.
He beat out defending champ Scott Dixon, who came in second. Eyes were on Oakville native James Hinchcliffe, who was hoping to be the first Canadian to win at home since 2003. He brought home 6th after finishing 4th last year.
But before the final race, some special moments for Guelph native Robert Wickens, who suffered a serious spinal injury in a crash last year. Today, he was behind the wheel of this modified car, his first time on a track publicly since the crash.
Wickens was back on the track to lead the parade lap before the race. The last time he was on a professional track in front of a crowd, this happened. Less than a year ago, an accident during a race in Pennsylvania left him paralyzed from the waist down. The steps he's taking to recover are inspirational and documented on social media.
This is just incredible. You know, the support that I've received this week, the support that I've received for the last 11 months has been truly inspirational for me.
And he got to share the moment with his fiancée. And after a couple laps around the track, Wickens gives the command.
Future drivers of mine, start your engines.
With that, signaling one day he hopes to be back competing for the top spot. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, still ahead, the U.S. president taking aim at some Democratic congresswomen, why he is being accused of racism. That's after the break. A colorful exhibit at the Stacked Market in Toronto today, tackling a troubling concept. It's trying to raise awareness for victims of child pornography. We spoke with two of the organizers, and here's what they had to say.
We thought something as universal and innocent, an icon of lollipop, was something that we could kind of bring and then bring people into the conversation, but then turn it and take that power back, take the word back from the offenders and bring power back to the survivors. There's 10,824 real lollipops that were unwrapped by hand, one by an incredibly kind group of volunteers. It was really important to us that we used real lollipops, not fabrications, not images. It's more powerful that way. We all know the look of a lollipop, the feel of a lollipop, and even in this room, the kind of the scent, that sweet scent of the lollipops adds a certain element to it as well.
There's a visual element and then there's an audio element. Tell me about all the little different things that went into making this exhibit a whole.
Well, it's funny, it started with a lollipop, and then it started from there just looking for ways to add more context to the story and add more dimension and add more emotion, because ultimately it's that emotional connection that we need Canadians in the world to create with this subject matter in order for it to go from awareness to understanding to creating some action. So the audio comes from the Phoenix 11, which is a group of survivors that have the courage to speak up and kind of share their stories. So they've shared their stories with us today, and it adds kind of a really powerful emotional human element to this exhibit.
Being a survivor has given me endless hope that I can make a difference and my story can help someone else's story.
In terms of number of images detected every 12 hours, we're seeing about 10,824 new images of child sexual abuse material being detected through our system. And we really wanted to use that information to get Canadians talking about the issue and applying pressure to industry to get the material removed.
A few days after bishops with the Anglican Church voted against officiating same-sex weddings, a church in London, Ontario held a protest service this morning. Church members wore pride colors and voiced their support for same-sex marriage. Kelda Yoon was there.
The pews were filled with more color than usual inside St. Aidan's Anglican Church, the congregation heeding their reverend's call to put on their rainbow best.
Today was our opportunity to let the LGBTQ2S+ community know that we stand in solidarity with them.
This tutu, my daughter made this last year to walk in the Pride Parade.
The colors also an act of defiance against the Anglican Church of Canada's decision not to recognize gay marriage. The motion by the Anglican Church almost went the other way. Church members overwhelmingly voted in favor of same-sex marriage, but the bishops narrowly defeated it.
It hurts me. I'm saddened by it. When it failed, to hear the wailing and the crying in a room, the pain of the people, particularly the young people who were there, it was heartbreaking.
Oh, I was angry. I was disappointed. And I have 8 grandchildren. They want to be married in the church. And they're told, yes, but not you.
For Mark and Greg Smith, who have been together almost 13 years, the vote hurt, but they have found comfort in their church community.
We received a lot of phone calls, emails, Facebook messages, text messages, and that really envelops us.
But they also know for some, that's not enough.
I'm sad that if people feel they now have to walk away. We've already heard of people who say, that's it, I'm done.
The Anglican Church's General Assembly wraps up on Tuesday. Reverend George hopes there's still a chance the decision can be reversed. If not, the decision will stand until at least the next General Assembly 3 years from now. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, London.
Next to a new Bill of Rights for passengers on Canadian Airlines that comes into effect tomorrow, covering everything from lost luggage to flight delays. But as Deborah Goebel reports, not everyone believes passengers have a reason to celebrate.
Ever not had your luggage show up?
Oh, yeah. Is that a dumb question or is that a trick question for an airport?
Not a trick question, but maybe a leading one, because starting Monday, Canada's new air passenger protection regulations come into effect. According to the government's new airline standards, bumping, overbooked flights, tarmac delays, lost baggage, and delays or cancellations within an airline's control will all result in compensation for passengers.
Great opportunity for to compensate, passengers for their inconvenience.
The new regulations say passengers could get up to $2,400 when bumped from an overbooked flight, $2,100 for lost luggage, and come December, airlines will have to pay up to $1,000 for any delays or cancellations within an airline's control. But this air passengers' rights advocate says the new regulations are a sham.
Canadian passengers are being duped by the government.
Duped and deceived, he says.
It sounds very appealing, but you can never meet the criteria.
For example, at YVR, Flair Airlines passengers are encountering numerous flight delays this weekend.
At 8:50, which is like 40 minutes before boarding, they said it was delayed by 12 hours.
And then it got delayed till 8, and then 10, and then 11:45, and then they canceled it.
Flair eventually stated one of its planes had a hydraulic issue which resulted in long flight delays for Vancouver, Edmonton, and Toronto.
When we wanted to cancel, they start screaming that we have to pay money for cancellation. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we had to leave yesterday at 2 p.m.
In many instances, Lukacs says the new rules are worse than the old ones.
In Canada, what we are going to see starting December is that airlines will be able to avoid paying compensation simply because they will claim that it was weather or it was maintenance.
And it's not just passenger advocates that don't like the new rules. Airlines say they're not happy with the proposed compensation levels, while the International Air Transport Association is taking the government to court, asking a judge to declare them invalid, leaving passengers trying to figure it all out. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Richmond.
In international news, there were more anti-government protests today in Hong Kong and more confrontations with police. Violence erupted when police chased protesters into a shopping mall. Protesters threw umbrellas and plastic bottles at the police, who responded with pepper spray. The extradition bill that ignited the protests has been declared dead by the government, but the protesters want its formal withdrawal and Chief Executive Carrie Lam's resignation. The U.S. was bracing for major immigration raids today against people facing deportation, but the sweep ended up being smaller than expected.
ICE, out! Stop the deportation!
Protesters expressed anger over plans to enforce deportation orders against at least 2,000 migrants across the country. But despite previous announcements suggesting a huge show of force, only a few operations seem to have taken place, and only in a handful of cities. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump is being accused of racism after posting tweets attacking some Democratic congresswomen. He claims they're from countries whose governments are, quote, a complete and total catastrophe, and he's suggesting they should go back. Katie Simpson walks us through it.
This is the battle, and are they divided, and what does this mean going forward?
Donald Trump's favorite TV morning show took a closer look at an internal battle within the Democratic Party. 4 rookie lawmakers, all women of color, all progressives, have riled senior Democrats for calling out racial bias within their own party. It's unknown if the president was watching today, but within less than half an hour, he tweeted his own take. So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, viciously telling the people of the United States how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came?
I haven't seen the tweets, but what you just said to me are racist dog whistles. What you just said to me is vile.
All 4 of the lawmakers are American. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was born in New York. Rashida Tlaib is from Michigan. Ayanna Pressley is from Illinois. Ilhan Omar is the only one not born in the U.S. She's a former Somali refugee who became an American citizen as a teenager.
Hey everyone, it's Rashida. I want you to know that you belong, that this is our country.
Democratic House Leader Nancy Pelosi called the tweets xenophobic. But this is not the first time Trump has been accused of racism.
You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides.
He defended neo-Nazis at a deadly rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. He introduced a travel ban based on religion and reportedly used the term shithole countries to describe Haiti and some African nations. Like the other incidents, though, what Trump said today didn't seem to upset his base.
This tweet that you're just seeing now is clearly going to get, I think, a lot of discussion.
Someone's feeling very comedic today.
Trump remains unapologetic, though he's noticed the backlash, tweeting that it's sad so many people are standing up for Democrats that he says speak poorly of the country. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Tropical storm Barry is losing power tonight, downgraded to a tropical depression, but it still created plenty of destruction for people in its path. Jacqueline Hansen is in New Orleans with the storm's impact.
Here, rain like this has nowhere to go.
The bag just fills up like a bathtub, just fills up.
Barbara Allen and her son spent the day digging, trying to keep her home dry.
It's just not going to quit. It's not going to stop. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go.
Heavy rain over Baton Rouge raised concerns of flash flooding. Add to that several tornado warnings.
Supposedly there was one sighted right here.
But Eric Norman is most concerned about the bayou behind his house. It overflowed in 2016 and flooded his home. He's worried it could happen again.
Kind of nervous. I got a handicapped daughter, and I just got to make sure when to get her out.
Barry's bands of rain have been slow and unpredictable. Water levels in most areas are receding, including on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain, where strong winds yesterday pushed water up from the lake and flooded streets.
Right now, I think it's going to be a long time until the water actually, leaves our property.
The flooding comes with the territory, but Gregory Reardon believes a seawall erected after Hurricane Katrina to protect the area is making it worse.
The water is really not flowing out the way it used to.
But in New Orleans, the test of upgraded flood protection systems never happened. Everything was in place, the floods just didn't come.
Around New Orleans, but not in the center.
Getting hurricane prepared, but nothing really happened.
The streets of New Orleans are coming back to life, and while the city was spared this time, it is still just the beginning of hurricane season, so locals here know they need to be ready for more. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, New Orleans.
And back here at home, a look at Toronto's skyline tonight. A beautiful night after a beautiful day, but get ready for the heat and humidity to really settle in. Amanda Weldon warned us about it earlier, and she will be back with her long-range forecast right after the break. People in Brampton watched the Cricket World Cup final on the big screen at the city's Market Square today. England beat New Zealand, and the cricket lovers who came out to watch also practiced their skills. And what a great day it was to be outside practicing your cricket skills if that's what you're into. Right, Amanda?
100%. It looks like so much fun.
It really does.
Okay, so we've got rain on the way, though, Chris. We were talking about humidex values earlier. Toronto Tuesday feeling like 39, clicking forward into the forecast, kind of identifying wherever you are. We're feeling into the 30s. It's really uncomfortable, and to get outside and enjoy some conditions becomes a bit hard-pressed when heat actually works into our forecast. We have a low-pressure system swinging on down northwestern Ontario, dealing with that more into our Monday, but then we see it sink down for Tuesday. So some of those showers are starting to come into play. But we were talking about earlier in the show, Barry, and we're actually going to be seeing the remnant moisture from that. And of course, that's the storm that hit the Gulf states. The remnant moisture is going to work its way on up, mix in with Pacific moisture by Wednesday. That's why we've got so much ample moisture in the atmosphere. And what you're seeing in green, that doesn't necessarily mean it's rain. It just means that the moisture is ripe for the development of storms. And that remnant moisture is just going to surge itself towards the north into midweek. So that, again, is why we are going to be getting into more of a rainfall scenario, and it's going to be a bit unsettled into the week. So a quick look at our 7-day forecast, and you will note that there is definitely rain on the scene, but flash forward even more, Chris, Friday, feeling like 43. So this is a moment to say, yeah, you got to make sure you drink a lot of water if you have a tough time in the heat. Going to areas like the mall, it's a free time, and you've got some AC there.
Or catch a road trip to the cottage if you can.
For sure.
Thanks, Amanda.
No problem.
That is our show for tonight. Before we go, we'll leave you with some sights and sounds from the Pizza Fest in Vaughan today. Have a great night.